RWBY, Volume 5, Episode 4, Lightning and Fire. What happens? The episode begins with Yang and Shady Guy entering a clearing. Shady gathers his friends, and after exchanging some words, they tussle. We then cut to Ranger having a significantly less exciting tussle. After Osmond stomps RWBY, Ren gives us some new rules on how the world works. The gang takes a moment to discuss Jean's lack of semblance, and once that's done, we cut to the bandits escorting Yang into the camp. Yang and Raven talk about getting Yang to RWBY, and after 5 minutes of chatter, Yang punches a guy to reveal Weiss in her cage. Weiss breaks out and joins Yang. Just as it looks like we're gonna get a cool action sequence, the maiden stops everything with some lightning. Raven instructs her heroes to speak with her in the tent, and the rest of the bandits fucking just walk away. With that, we're left with a hug between the reunited friends to end the episode. So this is something I should have mentioned in the review for the first episode of Volume 5, but Yang's outfit looks much better this volume. It's actually brown! I don't understand why it was green in Volume 4, but they've fixed it. I may still think it looks too complicated, but at least the color doesn't annoy me anymore. Why give Yang these gloves and cape if she's just gonna take them off? I mean, I assume the coat is a hassle to deal with when animating a fight, hence why they like to have her take it off here. I just don't understand why you would design her with it in the first place. Work with your medium, not against it. As an example of what I mean, Monty mentioned before that Nora was supposed to have a bow on the back of her old outfit, but it was left out since it would be tough to animate. That should have been done here. If her coattails made it hard to animate her, don't include them in the first place. Because now you also have the problem of Yang's silhouette looking weird without the tails. The silhouette of a character is very important when designing them, and without her coattails, Yang looks top-heavy. Her coat helped balance her out, so without it she feels lopsided and incomplete. This doesn't make any sense. Yang asks, that way. The clear reason for this is, she knows she's gonna beat these guys and use this vague direction to get to the camp where her mom is. It was set up well, but then the bandits just walk her into camp anyway. What, did Yang beat them up and then kindly wait for them all to wake up so they could escort her at gunpoint? It's as if the directors just decided to ignore their own script and animate whatever they felt like without thinking about what they had set up. Okay, so I kinda hate Shady Guy. He's way too serious, and his head is just like a weird shape. But I also kinda love him, since he clearly doesn't understand that he's fucking chump change. Why do all the bandits gasp at the gun in Yang's arm? Shouldn't that kinda be a given with her blatantly also a gun gauntlet on the other one? This is a pretty fun, if short, little fight. There are some slow moments, but for the most part it's fast without having the characters just go supersonic on us. There's clearly thought put into Yang's movements, and the song goes well with it. However, it's pretty annoying that Yang deployed her apparently surprising guns just to not use them. Yang only uses her shotguns for movement. And while this crazy spinning backflip is cool, I lament the fact that RT doesn't seem to understand that Yang could have just shot at the guy instead. And even then, whenever a gun is actually used in this fight, they either miss completely or are easily blocked. They've designed everything with a gun so they can seemingly ignore them. This is pretty fun training, but on a rewatch I'm left annoyed that this is the only training we ever see. And even then, for a good chunk of it, we're stuck looking at Jean and Nora talk.
You forgot to engage your aura again.
What? I thought aura was a passive thing, a force field, an HP bar. Now it's something you have to actively turn on? So I actually went back and listened to when Pyrrha talks about aura for the first time. She does say activate aura, but it's never been treated like something one has to engage or activate. It's been treated like an HP bar. Take too much damage and you suddenly become susceptible to harm. If this is something one has to engage, then how can it be tracked on their scrolls or in a tournament? Couldn't someone just never activate their aura and never get knocked out of a professional fight? If this is something one has to actively turn on, then how come it's only being brought up as something to remember now? This feels like they've just changed their own rules, since they've never treated aura like this before. It's always appeared as a passive health bar, but now it's something a character needs to turn on in a fight. If this is how aura was always intended to be like, then the writers and directors should have made that clear earlier. Ozpin taking over in the fight is pretty fun, and a cool way to demonstrate his superior abilities. But it's not super useful to interrupt Oscar's training to show off. Compared to Yang's tussle, this training lacks a little in terms of interest. The choreography is basically just punch, 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 and the camera has the tendency to plant itself too close to a character's face, so we're just looking at their expression as they get punched, instead of seeing the scene at an angle where we can see the puncher's wind-up. RWBY's punch here is weird. She has no momentum, and she just stops suddenly. Her swing should continue, and she should lean forward a bit, but instead she just freezes to look down. Remember when Ren wasn't just a discount Uncle Iroh? It's been mentioned before in a director's commentary that Ren's supposed to be tired, as if he and Nora share a pool of energy and she takes all of it. While they've never done a super good job of representing that in the show, he usually just comes off as apathetic, he's always at least felt unique. But now he's deteriorated into the seasoned advice giver. Ren's gone from a unique character to the wise sage trope, and that's disappointing. Why would you choose to make one of your more conceptually interesting characters a cliche we've seen hundreds of times? Because he's not voiced by Miles. Wait. Your aura can heal you now? Since when? That's definitely never been a thing in the show before, and only makes tournaments less viable. Theoretically, a combatant could just run away and hide to wait for their aura to replenish before fighting some more. You can't explain that this thing that was established in episode 6 has a whole nother very important and useful feature in episode 56. Since you've chosen to do this, it feels like you've had to establish this so suddenly to conveniently explain something you just thought up for the volume. The rules for this universe should be clear and consistent, otherwise your story has no structure or stakes. Why do they explain semblances? This sort of thing should be common knowledge in this world, especially for the kid with the ancient teacher voice in his head. Not to mention, we already know what they are, so you don't need to explain this to the audience. What's really annoying is how they explained semblances masterfully back in Volume 1, and now they've just chosen to re-explain it in a clunkier, more drawn-out way. I love this part. Even with my disdain for Mr. Steals the Show and RWBY's pretend voice, this is a really well done scene. RWBY's
John's like you!
is genuinely sweet and a perfect example of RWBY's optimism and how that shapes her as a leader. Not to mention the music. It's a little cheesy slice of life sounding, but it's nice and upbeat, really adding to the scene. To allow myself to gripe though, I'm disappointed in where the scene didn't go. Anywhere. This is a perfect setup for getting a scene or two of watching Jean and Oscar try to learn about semblances, and would have Oscar Jean another chance to develop. To allow Jean to become the teacher Oscar needs, like how Pyrrha helped to teach him before. This scene actually managed to get me excited for the idea of more Jean stuff, but it's never followed up on. This scene is really just here to build our anticipation for when Jean does get his semblance later, and that's a shame, because they had the stepping stones to really let us develop Jean, Oscar, and the world in a fun and plot-relevant way, and just didn't. It takes Yang over a minute to walk through the camp. Admittedly, halfway through her walk, we see why summon armor guy, but it's still way too long. Similar to Gira's long-ass walk to his podium, it feels like this was padded out for no reason, and drags because of it. It doesn't help that Yang and Raven basically just talk around each other for 4 minutes after that. This conversation is riddled with huge pauses, and the characters jump from topic to topic like a kid trying to push the word count on an essay. And once again, there's no background music! This conversation is boring. Everything Raven says is useless, and Yang just tells us her plan. Even watching it at ×2 speed is dull. This framing fucking sucks. This is the shot. This is our focus. Why is Raven so fucking far away? Why are they yelling at each other? They're only standing like 15 feet apart. Doing it like this makes both of their performances suffer. This is so annoying. Yang says,
"Because we're family."
in a stern way, but they choose to have her act coy in her animation. They totally don't match. You can't just pretend Barbara voiced the line differently and animate whatever you want, and you should have directed her properly to get the performance you wanted if you planned for her to be animated like this. Shouldn't Yang know about RWBY's whereabouts due to her letters? RWBY wondered if Yang had been getting her letters. Plural, implying that RWBY's been sending them as she adventured around with Ranger. Yang should be able to use her latest letter from RWBY as a starting point and follow her trail from there. RWBY should also be easier to find anyway. She's got a big-ass hood and a colorful team of friends, and actively interacts with townsfolk. But I mean really, they probably never planned for RWBY's letters and just threw that into the last episode to kill time, rather than use it for anything plot-relevant. Raven hints at RWBY and Crow being a lost cause, just to tell Yang that she doesn't want to get mixed up in all that when she asks about it. Just to then go into it some more. Why lead into a topic just to want to push it aside to then continue about it? Oh, that's right, because they scriptwriters don't fucking know what they're doing. Why does Raven try to get Yang to join her tribe? She actively abandoned and avoided her for years, and now thinks she'd want to stay? Why are these bandits so eager to add new members to their group? Just want to add some people who wear more than just brown and gray? This whole scene is also unbelievably disappointing, because it's a shitty conclusion to Yang's arc. Yang has been searching for her mom since she was a kid. RWBY almost got hurt because of this. Looking for Raven is the first thing we ever see Yang do in the Yellow trailer. This quest of hers was established in Volume 2 and hinted at with its after-credits scene. That build-up continued last volume, not only with seeing the twins talk, but also with Yang and Tai talking about Raven at Patch. It's all we've seen her do so far this volume, and after all that, there's no payoff. She just finds her mom and says, "Take me to RWBY." What? Isn't there something she wants to say to Raven? She's been searching for her since she was a child, but seemingly for no reason. Even with this new goal of use mom's semblance to get to RWBY, there should still be an original reason for Yang to seek out her mom. A planned out question or action she's been working towards this whole time. What if she wasn't looking for RWBY? What if Yang found Raven when she wasn't planning on using her semblance to reconnect with her sister? Would she want to fight Raven? Does she have any questions? We've been told she was looking for her mom in Volume 2, seemingly just to set up that as a way for her to find RWBY, as there's nothing else to this conversation. They finally start to get into it in episode 14, but it's too late. This is the first time Yang's seen her mom in years, and doesn't believe she'll see her again anytime soon. And all she has to say is, "Help me get to RWBY." It's amazingly convenient that the one and only guy who ran at Yang perfectly just happened to get punched into the one and only tent blocking Yang's view of Weiss. If they can hear each other at that distance when they speak normally, how come Weiss didn't recognize Yang when she was yelling at Raven? I like this interaction between Weiss and Yang. It's funny without detracting from the situation. Aw yeah, we got 2 members of Team RWBY versus a bunch of nobodies. Time to watch some fun action and see Yang and Weiss work together! Oh, never mind. I guess getting to see our heroes fight all those bandits was just too fun to have in the episode. It was definitely a better idea to just hype up the viewer with the building music and everything, and just not have any action. Raven mentions keeping calm to avoid a Grim attack, but honestly it seems she has nothing to worry about. Aside from the Lancers in episode 2, we don't see any Grim this volume. A bomb threat wasn't enough to attract the Grim. A little scuffle in the camp should be fine. Why give Weiss her sword back? Why not keep it and use it as an excuse for the girls to stay and talk in the tent? Now they can just fight their way out more efficiently if they want. This hug is really sweet, and it's one of my favorite parts of the volume. I know a lot of people like it because they ship Weiss and Yang together, but it's a powerful scene anyway. Friendship can be just as strong as romance, and these two have been especially lonely in the last volume. Weiss and Yang have arguably gone through the most difficulty recently, and getting to see these two finally have a friend to hold on to is touching. With Home playing throughout, and the beautiful lighting and effects, it's just a nice scene. And so, that was lighting the fire. This episode started strong. It had some action, a little world building, and nice character development. It was a little cheesy, a little clunky, but overall pretty good. Until the halfway mark. The moment Yang enters the camp, the episode drags its heels. The majority of the second half of the episode is Raven and Yang talking around each other and getting nothing done. Yang refuses to stray from the topic of get me to RWBY, and Raven just keeps jumping to different subjects. You're strong, Yang. Go ahead and ask questions. Family only show up if they need something, and I seem mad that you don't want to hang out with me. Also, you're strong, Yang. Crow's a lost cause, and a fool for trusting Oz. I trusted him once too. You should stay, Yang. Raven can't stay on topic, and it ends up feeling like the writer's desperately trying to push the runtime to be longer than 10 minutes. Why not fill that runtime with Yang and Weiss fighting the tribe? Because it's far easier to animate a conversation where the most movement is Raven taking 5 steps to the right and then walking back. It's a shame that the episode stumbles so much in the second half. While the beginning wasn't perfect, it was still fun, and felt like the people working on it really cared about the end product. The second half feels like the least amount of effort as possible was put into it. Since this was how they chose to have the episode conclude, it's the part that sticks with the viewer. While the first half was fun, the boring conversation is what stuck with me when I finished the video. There are things I liked this episode. The boring conversation between Raven and Yang is like a plague, tarnishing what started out as a nice episode, seemingly because they just didn't want to try with the bandits, and figured ending the episode with a hug would distract from the lack of enthusiasm that pervaded it. Well, it doesn't. Just because you end the episode with something nice does not excuse or cover up the lackluster scene we had to sit through to get to it.